Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at two new sets of markers from Arrtx. Now I have used a smaller set of this version before. This is their 72 set of markers with this pattern on it. However, they have added a new feature to this set of markers. They have added additional nibs with the set, so you can switch them out. If you don't want a bullet tip, you can do a hazelnut tip, which is a little bit finer of a nib, or you can do a brush tip. So that's something new with this set of 72 that wasn't in the previous set of 48. And then we have the Simptap markers, which have been around for a while, but I've just never used them before. So we're going to take a look at both of these today and see how they work and see what you may like, and if you may want to add these to your stash. I wanted to get this video review out today because they are going to be on special during Prime Days, I believe. So let's take a look. Both of these come in nice reusable boxes, which I like. Now I've gone ahead and started all of the markers except for one of each kind, so I can show you how they get started. You have a nice plastic grid in this, just like the previous set of 48, so you can store it on their side. I would put the lid on and store it on its side if you want to keep the nib wet. If you're using them frequently, you might not need to do that. I think these are going to need to be stored on their side because I've noticed just in the couple of hours since I've started these, the tips have kind of started to dry out already. Let's take a look at these first. I've got one that I haven't started yet, so we can do that together. So when you get the marker, it looks like this, and there's a little plastic cap. I'm actually saving these because I think I can use these for watercolor pans. I need a 48 pan palette, and I don't have any, and there's 48 markers here, so I'm saving all these to turn it into a palette. Let me know if you'd like a video on that. And then what you got to do is shake it, and you can hear the little ball rolling around inside the marker. And then you want to uncap it, and then you're going to pump the little valve on the end. So, and you can, did you see how that kind of flooded into the nib a little bit? So you want to pump it, it says 3 to 4 times, but one pump on this one has already started it pretty well. And it says once you've got the ink about halfway down the nib, you can cap it back up and shake it to help it fill the nib a little bit better. Actually, this one started really well. Doing this whole box, minus this one, took about 44 minutes to activate, so about a minute per marker. This one's going a little bit quicker, which is nice. And now let's see. Now this marker here is pretty, well, it's a bit lighter. They'll probably dry a little bit darker. I like to actually put a little color on the cap because it can be very difficult unless you've written out the numbers and made a swatch chart. Generally, the Arrtx markers come with swatch charts, but this one didn't. But anyways, that's how you start that. Now to start these markers, these other ones here, they're your typical, pump it onto your paper. Now, if you want, you could put in one of these other nibs. So it comes with 26 brush nibs or 8 hazelnut tips. The hazelnut tips are very similar to this, except they're just a little bit more tapered. So if you wanted to, say, start it with a brush nib, these brush nibs have a plastic collar on them. So what you would do is you put it in there, and instead of like pressing down on the tip of the nib, which would make it damaged, you would just want to kind of push on the plastic part, so the plastic part gets it started. But I think I'm going to save these brush nibs until I need them. I've got one with a green on it. I can show you that one. But yeah, you just would start it by pumping it on there. And what I usually do is do it right on the swatch card. This one came with a really nice swatch card, which was great. Give it a few pumps, and then you can see the ink start to come down. And this, to do the 72 markers, only took about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes for 72 versus 44 minutes for 48. These were much easier to get going. The other issue I ran into with the Simptap markers is that sometimes when you press the back, it makes the marker explode. And I've got one that went a little berserk and it's leaking like crazy, so I'm probably going to have to get rid of this one because it's just making a mess. And I've got like spatters. I got this all over my hand. I've got spatters in my sketchbook from when it started, and I've even got little spatters on my phone. It went everywhere. So on a couple of these, I noticed I went to press the valve and I felt a pop, and it burst something, and now the ink is like backing up into that. So I don't know, maybe I could put some packing tape around it and stop the bleeding, but that did happen on a couple. This is just the worst of it. So I have to say that I'm not really a big fan of the Simptap markers. They took longer to go. I thought they'd be easier to get started because you're pressing in on the back. Arrtx makes a brush end marker that is all ready to go. It comes ready to go. In fact, do I have any up here? I have used them before. They actually have a few. The one that I would recommend, if you want a brush tip from Arrtx, I would recommend this one right here. It comes in 36 colors, and the thing I really like about this set is, and I don't know if everything's going to be on sale, but it does seem like these brands, like Arrtx and other brands you see on Amazon a lot, do opt into these sales. But the nice thing about these is that you got to shake them up to get them going. They come already started, and they're nice and opaque. They're ready to go, and I can actually open that up if I wanted to. I could open that up, unscrew it, and I could refill it with my acrylic inks I already have. So if you want the brush tip version and you want to get an Arrtx branded marker, I would highly recommend this. Plus, you can easily see through the window what the colors are. Now, these do have windows on them, but I find it very difficult to kind of tell what I have for colors, especially if I want to store them in the box, unless I want to swatch them on the ends, which looks kind of messy. So I gotta say, I'm just not a big fan of this body, this type of marker. I think the ink's pretty much the same throughout the markers, but I did find much more difficulty using this one, getting them started, and then the couple of little explosions that I had. So this would be my pick. Plus I like the box that these are in, where they're all laying out and I can see the colors through the little windows on the side much better. So if you wanted my advice on an Arrtx brush marker to get, that would be it. But let's see these in action so that you can kind of get an idea. Now, one of these greens I actually put a brush tip in. I think maybe it was this one. Yeah, right there. There you can see it. It's a smaller brush tip than the brush tips on this marker and on the other Arrtx ones, so that might be important to you if you want that tiny tip. And you do have that versatility of these having them a bullet or a brush tip. You don't get enough brush tips to make them all brush markers, but you know, if you've got certain colors that you know you want to have in a brush, then that's there. Maybe they'll make these available open stock in the future. I'm not sure. I haven't known Arrtx to offer any nib refills in the past, but it could be a possibility. So what I'm going to do, oh, the other thing that I like about, I like this style marker. I've used it for a while. You have the 48 set. The thing I like about this is it kind of goes along with their branding on their sketchbooks. So if you like to just have things match and look nice on your desk, I mean, that's definitely a plus. So I don't know how important that is. I'm more into how functional it is, but oh, color wise, these are the markers in the 72 set. These are the colors in the Simptap set that I'm not a fan of the Simptap set, I've got to say. But it may be easier for some people to, you know what, I have to say, pressing that valve on the end, that last one I showed you, that one went pretty well, but I found it kind of a struggle to get those started, and I'm fairly dexterous. I don't have any strength issues in my hands. I don't have any arthritis. I do think that could cause an issue for folks with arthritis. I'm not sure. I think Becca Hilburn might have reviewed those markers too, and she is an artist that has arthritis and has some strength issues. So I would watch her. I'd watch her review anyway. Even if we don't agree on something, I do appreciate her perspective on things. So the ink's flowing pretty smoothly here. I do have a little bit of ink kind of pooling out around the nib. I have stored these upright because I just started them, and you know, if I'm working them in one session, I usually don't find that markers dry out too much in the course of just one go. This is the optional nibs that you can put in there. I like these little nibs too. These are kind of nice. So if you need to get these started, see that little plastic collar? Say this went kind of dry and I need to revamp it. I would go in there, I would go with my fingernail and I would just press down on that collar, and that would let more ink flow in. I wouldn't want to press down on the tip of that brush because then you're putting undue wear and tear on the brush. And this is just a little ink sketch that I did when I was at the botanical garden. So I thought this would be kind of fun to fill in with the markers, since they are since this is a mixed media paper. I might want to put a brush tip on this. I could show you that actually. Yeah, let's put a brush tip on this. Okay, so this is what I would do to change a nib. I've got one nib right there. I'll probably, that's a thing, if you know you want a brush nib on, it's probably better just to start it with the brush nib, I think, because you're probably not going to be able to save those nibs, you know, once you've taken them out and that acrylic dries. So that's kind of a bummer. Okay, so what I would do, or maybe you want to start them with the bullet nibs and then put the brush nib in to save wear and tear. All right, so I'm going to put that in there, and I'm just going to kind of grab it with my fingers and give it a few pumps so I'm not pressing down. But I can use my fingernail and just kind of, see how I have it on the edge of that? I shouldn't be doing this over my work, but I'm not too worried about it. Well, you know what? Let's put this underneath there. I think I'm going to cap it and shake it and see if that helps it get going. Might take a few minutes. So it is a little bit tricky, and that's again another reason why I'd say if you want the brush tips, I would highly recommend the liquid ink filled ones that are already ready to go, because it's kind of tough to get the ink to go without damaging the nib. You know what I should have done actually? I probably should have pumped out a little puddle of the ink from before I took this nib out. I should have just pumped out a little bit of that and just let it, you know, let it puddle. Okay, this is what I should have done. I'm going to be so messy. Okay, so I think if you want to change to a brush nib, pump out a little puddle onto a scrap. Take out the old nib. Put the brush nib in, and then you can kind of soak up some of that ink with the brush nib so you don't have to, so then the capillary action can kind of soak in the rest of that so you're not putting a lot of wear and tear. Oh, that's nice. But again, you only have 26 of those colors that you can do in the brush nib. Oh, I like this though. I like these smaller nibs though. If you want that smaller nib, let's just compare really quick the size of the nibs. Yeah, it's a little bit smaller than the ones in here too. So, I mean, that's kind of nice. I hope they offer those open stock as well. I don't know if they will or not, because you know, they primarily sell on Amazon. They do have their own store, so maybe they have that there, but I think most people generally will purchase from them on Amazon. Oh, that's nice. Okay, I like that. That's nice. These are what I'm feeling is the winner. But they're very quick. They work just like any of your other markers that you might have. I think you want to keep them on their sides, like I mentioned before, just keep the ink flowing well. But you can see, you can get a nice variety of strokes in there. If you need to put more ink out, like this one never, the tip didn't really flood out fully. So I'm going to try shaking it, except that what they tell you to do is to shake it after you've gotten the ink to start down. And then that should help it fill the nib, and there, and that's much more, well, I can still see a little bit of white on there, but it's much better. And it says you don't need to pump the tip of the nib unless you don't have to pump the valve unless the nib is drying out. It might be okay to actually store upside down, but I'm not sure. It didn't say anything about that on the box. I was surprised this one didn't come with a swatch card. It seems like their markers usually do come with a swatch card. Now this color is very similar to the color we just used. I'm surprised. I'm surprised for only 48 colors that there's so many similar colors. Like, look how similar that is. Just like, just slightly lighter. Just slightly maybe lighter and not as red, but not a big difference. Let's see, what else do we have? Let's try this one. Is that the one we just used? I don't think it is. No, this one's much more red. Oh, this one feels much juicier. So, my final verdict on this is I like the Arrtx acrylic markers in general. I think they have a nice variety from the jumbo ones, which I did a whole comparison of all the Arrtx markers in a previous video, but it was before I got this one with the replaceable nibs and the Simptap version. I think they're a great value for like those really jumbo markers, and also the set of 36 brush markers, and the ones that have the cotton core if that's more what you prefer to work with. But I think the Simptaps aren't quite ready for prime time, honestly. Maybe go in there. Let's see, is there a really dark violet here? That's almost red looking. The caps do not match at all. It's the caps are really off on the Simptap set too, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, they're kind of off on this too, but you can see you have a nice big window. You have a window on the other one too. I don't know. Maybe because it came with a mixing chart, I was more lenient with that. I would much rather just swatch on the marker itself and then be able to see what I had. And you might want to find a way to delineate what ones have a brush nib if you are going to be using the set where you can add different nibs in, just so you know what's what. So that way you're not confused when you go to use your markers about what you're getting. There is definitely a, oh, I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, generally with your acrylic markers, if they're opaque, they tend not to be the most dark and vibrant colors, so that is something to consider as well. So if you want really vibrant colors, you might have a bit of a challenge finding them. But yeah, there's my feeling in a nutshell. I'd say yes to these. I would say no to these personally, but as always, it's up to you. And there are those colors again from the 48 set of the Simptap markers. I was curious about them. I'm glad I tried them out, but I don't recommend them. These are nice though. Anyway, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I used both of those marker sets to do this illustration here, and I mean, they work fine together. I feel like the ink is probably the same across all of the Arrtx markers. I don't notice any of them being very different, except for the ones that are the cotton core, their original double-ended ones, because those were more like gouache. But all these other ones with like the pump action, the valve action, or the jumbo ones all seem to be, any of the liquid-filled ones seem to be the same type of ink. And also the single-ended acrylic ones also seem to be the same kind of ink, maybe a little bit less opaque so that it can go through be stored in the cotton core. But yeah, I mean, it's up to you, but I would avoid the Simptaps. And that's all I gotta say about that, I guess. Thank you so much for watching. I'll put links to all these products in the video description so you can check them out. I'll also link to the Arrtx store on Amazon because I believe they're taking part in a lot of those Prime Day sales. And if you had your eye on something, maybe a sketchbook, or their watercolor sketchbooks are excellent. I'll have a review on them coming out pretty soon, but they are really nice. Yeah, they'll be available as well. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time. Oh, do you want to see how the acrylic markers look in the watercolor sketchbooks? This is on the hot press paper. That's the acrylic marker. It's just, I don't know what brand acrylic, just different acrylic markers there, but it does work really well on that paper. I think the swatch card that comes with the 72 set is on their watercolor paper. But they also have a cold press book. The square one's cold press. I'm just putting this out there because in case you're doing your shopping those Prime Day sales. It's got a really, really nice texture. For the size of the sketchbook though, the texture might be a bit much for some people, you know, because it is so distinct and it is so rough. And it's a little bit smoother on the opposite sides. Like on the opposite sides, a little bit more like a typical cold press texture, and I feel like the other sides are more of a rough texture, and on a small page like this is like 6x6, that can seem a little aggressive, but it's nice. I like them both. I definitely would say a big yes to the watercolor sketchbooks that they offer. But anyway, there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye!